the first 4 stages. So remember, the elephant was the mind. The fact that it was black is symbolising dullness or laxity. The monkey is symbolising discursive thought in general. The fact that it is black is symbolising excitement. And we saw here at stage 1 that monkey and elephant running wildly ahead of the meditator. So at stage 1, basically what we see is that our mind is completely out of control, that we can hardly be focusing on the object at all, and most of the time we're just completely distracted. But if we keep practicing, we go around the second stage here, elephant, monkey not running so fast anymore, a little bit of white on the tops of their heads. This is the factor of stability and clarity. So now at stage 2, our mind is becoming a little bit more stable, more clear. And here at stage 2, we can sort of hold the object maybe for a minute or 2. And then if we're distracted for long periods of time. But if we keep practicing, we go around to stage 3 and 4. This is the road of mindfulness. So now our mindfulness is getting very good. So at stage 3, now we can hold the object maybe 5 or 10 minutes at a time. And then if we get distracted, we quickly recognize that and come back. Whereas at stage 4, called close setting, now we can hold the object the entire time without ever completely losing it.
This is us, the person. This is the observer.
Sorry?
The meditator.
The meditator is the person.
Is the person.
Yeah, the person there. He's running after the elephant at the beginning. Go, come back, come back. Our mind is completely gone. And so now at 3 and 4, we've got the rope of mindfulness tied to the elephant of the mind. So remember I talked about in stage 4 yesterday that, you know, it feels like you can be focusing on 2 things at once, but there's like sort of you're cutting backwards and forwards between them, and so there's a fragmentation of attention. And so to talk about that a little bit here, I've got Alan Wallace on page 62. He says, as mentioned previously, in the 4th stage of shamatha practice, you achieve the power of mindfulness, and the practice comes into its own. While your attention is no longer prone to coarse excitation, that means getting completely distracted, it is still floored by medium degree of excitation. When medium excitation occurs, you don't completely lose track of your object of attention, but involuntary thoughts occupy the center of attention and the meditative object is displaced to the periphery. That's what I said, we're mainly focusing on dinner and a little bit in the corner of the mind, we're holding the breath. To compare this with coarse excitation, let's again take the analogy of tuning into a radio station. Coarse excitation is like losing your chosen station altogether, as your tuner slips into either another station or to mere static. Medium excitation is like drifting slightly toward another station, but not so completely that you no longer hear your chosen station at all. You still hear it, but it's muffled by extraneous noise. The achievement of the 4th stage brings with it a sense of accomplishment. You are now an experienced shamatha trainee, no longer a complete beginner. If you have not gained a sound conceptual understanding of the entire shamatha path, you may well think you have already come to its culmination, which can easily give rise to some degree of complacency concerning your meditative practice, which brings its own dangers. So then if we keep practicing, we go around the corner to stage 5 and 6. This is the road of introspection. Now our introspection is getting a lot better. So we can see here the hook of introspection is more prominent. So over these middling stages now, we are fine-tuning our focus. Meaning if our mind is a bit tight and getting agitated, we relax it. If it's getting a bit dull, we sharpen it. So the analogy here is a little bit like the analogy of a guitar string. If a guitar string is too tight or too loose, it doesn't play well. Likewise, if our mind is too tight or too loose, it doesn't focus well. And so again here to talk a little bit about this stage 5, in Attention Revolution on page 78. He says the primary challenge here is to overcome laxity without undermining stability. The way to counteract laxity or dullness is to arouse the attention, to take greater interest in the object of meditation. Tibetan contemplatives liken this to stringing a lute. So a lute is like sort of a guitar. If the strings are too tight, they may easily break under the strain. And if they're too slack, the instrument is unplayable. Likewise, the task at this point is to determine the proper pitch of attention. If you arouse the mind too much in your efforts to remedy laxity, it will easily fall into excitation. But if you relax too much, it will likely succumb to laxity. It is a delicate balancing act, and the only way you can meet this challenge is through your own experience, determining for yourself the suitable degree of effort to tune your attention. Buddhist contemplatives have grappled with this dilemma for millennia, and they report it takes great skill to solve it. And then we move to stage 6. So here at stage 6, now the introspection is getting a lot better, and we're able to detect that subtle dullness much better. So we see the rabbit has sort of disappeared, and we're nearly going to say goodbye to the monkey shortly. So here at stage 6, so let's have a look again at what our Attention Revolution on page 99. In stage 6, and remember, one of his recommendations was to use the breath till stage 4, then your mind is much more stable, and then from stage 5 onwards to observe the mind. So he's talking about that in this context. He says, in stage 6, involuntary thoughts pass through your consciousness like a river slowly flowing through a valley. As the mind becomes more at ease, thoughts flicker like butterflies through the space of awareness, and you're able to passively witness the entire sequence of thoughts arising, playing themselves out, then vanishing. They seem less weighty in that they're less able to pull your attention after them. Like Einstein's theory that physical space is warped by bodies of matter within it, it sometimes feels as if space of awareness is warped by the contents of the mind. At times, when we become fixated on something, our minds seem to become very small. Trivial issues loom up in our awareness as if they are very large and important. In reality, they haven't become large, our minds have become small. The experienced magnitude of the contents of the mind is relative to the spaciousness of the mind. So to keep the activities of the mind in perspective, let the space of awareness remain as expansive as possible. So remember, we were doing that consciously in that stillness in motion practice. In the meantime, the less you grasp onto mental events, the less the space of the mind contracts around them and is warped by them. Warped. Warped. Yeah. Throughout the development of shamatha, even at this relatively advanced stage, a myriad of emotions and other mental and physical conditions may arise, many of them very unexpectedly. This practice of settling the mind in its natural state, so that's the name he gives to observing the mind practice, is especially known for unveiling the suppressed and repressed contents of the mind, and these vary widely from one individual to the next. There is no way to predict beforehand what kinds of experiences you may have. So if we keep practicing, we'll go around to stage 7 and 8 here, and this road here is called the road of effort, or really it's enthusiasm. And so we see here at stage 7, the meditator saying goodbye to the monkey, and there's hardly any left on the back of the elephant. So at stage 7, it means that if some little hint of subtle agitation or subtle dullness arises in meditation, we can dispel it immediately. And then at stage 8, now we see that the monkey is completely gone. There's no black on the left back of the elephant. So now at stage 8, all we need to do is really just put a little bit of effort to start the meditation, and then the meditation runs effortlessly without any hint of subtle agitation or subtle dullness. So here, let's read a little bit from Attention Revolution on stage 8 on page 130.
For how long? It didn't say the long.
Or how long you can meditate? 2 or 3 hours, no problems.
Stage 8?
Yeah. And I think he says that here. Actually, yeah, he does. By continuing in the sustained cultivation of shamatha, eventually you will achieve the 8th stage, known as single-pointed attention. You will achieve the 8th stage known as... You have now realized a high degree of unification of attention. Wherever you direct it, your awareness is coherent and highly focused. From this point onward, you can flow with the momentum of the practice with little or no effort. You can now sustain a high level of samadhi or highly focused attention, free of the imbalances of even the subtlest laxity and excitation for at least 3 hours or so. Only the slightest degree of effort at the beginning of each session is needed to ward off these obstacles, and you continue in your practice motivated by the power of enthusiasm. For the first time, the flow of attention proceeds without any interruption by laxity or excitation, and the overall quality of this state of samadhi is one of stillness. Whereas in the preceding stages, involuntary thoughts arose like a river slowly flowing through a valley. Now the mind feels calm, like an ocean unmoved by waves.
Does that mean that thoughts don't come up and physical sensations don't come up?
Yeah, I think by stage 8, pretty well your sense faculties have shut down. You won't have really any sense of body. You won't hear anything. And your mind has gone completely quiet.
So also no body pains if you have any?
And on stage 7, when do you start to feel the body?
It's not like sudden. It's gradual. So I think it depends a little bit, but it's around this area here where even earlier, your sense of solid body will drop away. You'll hardly notice it.
But you feel a sensation.
Yeah, but not here because your mind, your mental consciousness is so focused on the mental space that the sense faculties now really have become dormant.
When you're not meditating at that stage, what's your experience of like the sensory world like?
You're completely vivid. So outside of meditation, when you observe the body, it's like completely vivid. Everything is vivid. Your attention is so vivid, mentally on your thoughts, but also on the sense feel. It's like, everything's crystal clear in daily life. Crystal clear.
Why do your senses get so dull in meditation?
No, they don't get dull.
Or disappear, I suppose.
Because you're occupying your mind in the mental... You remember the 6 consciousnesses? It's the mental consciousness that is so engaged that the sensory faculties go dormant. They're not going dull, they're just going dormant. A little bit like when you fall asleep, your sense faculties go dormant.
What signs that there is no effort?
Sorry?
How can you tell?
Well, because the flame. So even back here, see the flame existed up to about stage 6, but then already at stage 7 the flame is gone. So at stage 7, you just need a little bit of effort and at stage 8, it really becomes sort of effortless, the whole practice. And then stage 9 now, it really becomes in the stage in the cave here. It becomes completely spontaneous. You can move in and out of meditation floor seamlessly. There's not really much of a difference between meditation and daily life. And so here also to
So you don't need to practice at this stage?
no. Daily life is practice now. It's really practice. So
What is physical fluency? What is the
that's coming. I'm going to talk about that shortly.
And we can get to this stage in modern life, living a modern life.
Is this
I'll talk about that tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. So here at stage 9, he says, only the slightest exertion of effort, with only the slightest exertion of effort, you proceed from the 8th attentional stage to the 9th, known as attentional balance. You are now able to maintain flawless samadhi effortlessly and continuously for at least 4 hours. Due to the power of deep familiarization with this training, you can slip into meditative equipoise free of even the subtlest traces of laxity and excitation, with no effort at all. This is not to say that your attention is irreversibly balanced. If for some reason you discontinue the practice, you will find that laxity and excitation erode your attentional equipoise. They have not been irreversibly eliminated. But if you maintain a contemplative lifestyle and keep your attention honed through regular practice, this wonderful degree of sanity can be yours for life. But still we have not achieved shamatha. So shamatha is the diagram in the middle at the top, where we see the meditator riding on the elephant of the mind and flying through the sky. So this is symbolizing physical and mental pliancy. And I'll talk about that now. It's coming. So when we go from stage 9 to shamatha, we go through like a radical transition in the body and the mind. And our body and mind then achieve this pliancy or this flexibility or serviceability. So when you actually achieve shamatha, as a result of that, it's said that your body feels light like cotton. And that's symbolized by the person flying through the sky. And mental pliancy is that you have no resistance in your mind whatsoever. You can turn your mind to whatever you want without any resistance at all. That's mental pliancy, and that's symbolized by the meditator riding on the elephant of the mind, turning the mind to whatever they want. So to explain that transition, again, Alan Wallace explains it very well in his book here on page 155. So let's see what he says. He says, following the realization of the 9th stage of attentional balance, you are primed to achieve shamatha. The 9 preceding stages entail many incremental changes, but the actual accomplishment of shamatha involves a radical transition in your body and mind. You will be like a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. This shift is characterized by specific experiences that take place within a discrete, relatively brief period of time. According to accounts from the Indo-Tibetan tradition of Buddhism, the first sign of the achievement of shamatha is the experience of a sense of heaviness and numbness on the top of the head. This allegedly happens to anyone who experiences this transition, regardless of the specific method followed. It is said to feel as if a palm were being placed on the top of your head. It is not unpleasant or harmful, just unusual. Something remarkable must be taking place in the cortical region of your brain at this point, but so far no one has monitored the brain correlates of this shift using magnetic resonance imaging or an electroencephalograph. This physical sensation on the top of the head is symptomatic of a shift in your nervous system or network of vital energies that is correlated with gaining freedom from mental dysfunction, a general state of mental imbalance characterized by stiffness, rigidity, and unwieldiness. Consequently, you achieve a state of mental pliancy in which your mind is fit and supple like never before. From a contemplative perspective, when the mind is dysfunctional or prone to laxity and excitation, it is hard to generate enthusiasm for healing the afflictions of your mind or for devoting yourself to virtuous mental activity. Once you are free of such mental dysfunction, you can focus your mind without resistance on any meaningful object or task. And such a mind is now set to be fit or serviceable. This is the key to achieving optimal mental performance. Following this sense of pressure on the top of your head, you experience the movement of vital energies moving in your body. And when they have coursed everywhere throughout your body, you feel as if you are filled with the power of this dynamic energy. You are now freed of physical dysfunction, so your body feels buoyant and light like never before. So that's symbolized by the person flying through the sky. Both your body and mind are now imbued with an exceptional degree of pliancy, which makes them remarkably fit for engaging in all kinds of mental training and other meaningful activities. When physical pliancy initially arises, the vital energies catalyze an extraordinary sense of physical bliss, which then triggers an equally exceptional experience of mental bliss. This rush of physical and mental rapture is transient, which is a good thing, for it so captivates the attention you can do little else except enjoy it. Gradually it subsides, and you are now freed from the turbulence caused by this intense joy. Your attention settles down in perfect stability and clarity. You have now achieved shamatha. Sounds pretty good. There's one more diagram here though at the end. And now we see the meditator riding on the elephant in the mind, and in the right hand is a sword. This is a sword of wisdom. So this is describing Vipassana practice, and there are two numbers here, 32, 33. So if we go over the page and have a look at what 32 or 33 is, it says 32, the root of samsara is cut by the union of shamatha and vipassana observing emptiness. 33, equipped with mindfulness and introspection, seek the correct view of emptiness. So what this is saying here is then, on the basis of shamatha, now we can effectively engage in vipassana practice to investigate the nature of reality, to come to realize emptiness, and then using that sword of wisdom of emptiness, cut through ignorance, mental afflictions and suffering. Now what this is not saying is that first we need to achieve shamatha before we begin vipassana practice. If we wait for that, we're never going to begin vipassana practice. In fact, we probably won't get anywhere near shamatha. But what it is saying is that for vipassana practice to start to be effective, we really need some shamatha. Because if we do vipassana practice now with a completely distracted mind and half asleep mind, very dull mind, we can put a lot of effort into vipassana practice and not really get anywhere. So therefore, if we put some effort into shamatha and develop a little bit more stable, clear, focused mind, then we start to do vipassana practice. Then the vipassana practice will start to have a little bit of an impact. We may get a little taste of emptiness, and that little taste of emptiness will start to have a positive impact on our mind, which will then feed back into shamatha practice, meaning that positive impact means that probably our mental afflictions will be temporarily at least a little bit less, which means then if we go into shamatha practice in that state, there'll be less obstacles in shamatha practice, which means we'll probably be able to go a little bit deeper into shamatha, and then we can go back into vipassana with that little bit deeper shamatha, go penetrate a little bit more, a little bit stronger experience affecting us a bit more, and they'll feed each other. And then eventually they'll become unified, as said here in 32, and then we can really fully penetrate nature of reality. So that is very briefly the shamatha chart. Any questions about anything in the chart?
How many hours a day?
I try to calculate.
I'm saying like reasonable for people like us. I know it's tomorrow, but people that working in
Sure. And, you know, often I hear people say, oh, I'd like to meditate, but I never have time. I think that's never a valid excuse. Now, it is, of course, true that probably most of us here have very busy lives. And some of the things we do each day are fairly essential. Most of us need to work at some level to have enough money, to have a roof over our head and so forth. Maybe some of us got family responsibilities, maybe some of us got some other responsibilities. But what we tend to do is we fill up our day with a lot of extra stuff that doesn't really bring us much. And often we do that for one of two reasons. One is that it's often felt like in our modern society, if we're not doing something, we're not being productive. So just do something to be productive. And the second reason is if we're not doing anything, we're just sitting there quietly, that sort of forces us a bit to look at the state of our mind, which is a mess. We don't like what we see, so we just distract ourselves, we busy ourselves, so we don't have to look at the chaotic state of our mind.
I'm saying that if we know how long to, like I have time, okay?
Sure.
I know I can put away the time.
Yeah.
How many hours?
Right. So I'm coming to that now. So therefore, we could forcibly cut things out of our day, but that'll be a struggle. I think what is important to get time and space to meditate is we need to shift our worldview. Because if our worldview is that source of my happiness and suffering is out there, I think we're never going to have enough time to meditate. Because I need more of that stuff. So I'm busy, working longer, earning more money so I can have more stuff. And I'm chasing after that stuff out there. That takes a lot of time. So I got no time to meditate. So I think that's going to happen. But if we can shift that worldview to understand that really the source of happiness and suffering is coming within, and that this practice is the gateway to that, then we're going to lose interest in a lot of these extra things that don't really bring us anything. Then we're going to have time and space to meditate. And how long to meditate? As I've said a couple of times, is quality over quantity. If we've got 2 hours in the morning, as a beginner, I think if we sit down and try and meditate 2 hours, that's not going to be very useful. Because probably after about 15 or 20 minutes, we're just going to be sitting there completely daydreaming and half asleep. So therefore, quality over quantity. So therefore, as a beginner, have short sessions. And if we want to meditate a bit longer, have multiple short sessions. But again, you'll find that even after a few short sessions, and you try and meditate more as a beginner, it'll be counterproductive because you won't be able to do that and you'll just get caught up in distraction and dullness. So, as a beginner, I think to try and do 3 hours in the morning meditating is probably not going to work very well. So do what we can and then use the other time, and then we can sort of do a bit of meditation in different times of the day. And then also we can use that time to study and contemplate as well, because there's 3 wisdoms we're cultivating here. There's hearing, contemplation, and meditation. And if we don't do hearing and contemplation, then what are we going to meditate on? And if we have some sort of experience, how are we going to interpret that? So, we shouldn't think that, I really just need to meditate, I don't want to study. Forget about that. So we need to do all 3. How the balance can be determined if we have a qualified teacher, they can help to strike that balance for us. If we only do study, that's not good. If we only do meditation, that's also not so useful. But if we do those 3 activities, then I think you'll find that the more study we do, the more we'll understand the path and the practices, the more confidence we'll gain. Because if we don't have that, it's hard to be confident that this practice is going to do anything for us. And when it gets a bit difficult, we're going to lose interest. So we need that sort of confidence to do the practice, to put effort into the practice. And that